Well, also too, if you look at the story Jesus presented in his parable, he says if you're invited to a wedding feast, like don't go and take the highest place at the table.
Yeah.
It's a wedding, right? Who are
It's-
supposed to be honored at the wedding, right?
It's not about you. Yeah.
Oh, why are you sitting at the bridal table? Well, seemed like the best table.
That's where all the cameras were. So.
It's like it's not even about you, right? You're supposed to be there to honor somebody else, and you're seeking the highest honor for yourself. So it's ridiculous. All right, so that's Jesus on seeking fame. He's kind of against it.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah. Welcome to Biblocus, where the Bible intersects with your life. I'm Timothy.
And I'm Caleb.
And you're listening to Bible Discussions, the forum where we explore biblical topics that are relevant to your life. Today, we're continuing our series on the sayings of the wise that are found in the book of Proverbs. And today, we're going to be looking at saying number 5, which talks about serving before the king. So let's start by reading that. It's Proverbs 22, verse 29. Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's not the way we think about things now, maybe about kings and maybe, I mean, I guess you could think about officials, but there's a lot more going on there than meets the eye.
Yeah. I mean, I think today maybe our kingmakers are like our social media influencers and reporters and things like that pass judgment on what's happening every day. But if you just look at it at face value, right? It says if you're skilled, you'll excel. Like the old saying, the cream always rises to the top, right? That seems like what it's saying just on its face value, right? Then you look at those last two lines that it has there, and it talks about how the person will serve before kings and they will not serve before obscure men. And so suddenly that brings in this whole idea of motivation, like why we do things, what we're looking for when we serve, right? Why we do the things we do, and it's to curry the favor or the good opinion of other people.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Yeah, we all want to be recognized. We all want to feel like our work means something, and we all want to be valued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We want our work to be recognized, like we want at the highest levels, like this proverb talks about. And so that kind of introduces this problem. It's like if we have the motivation that we want that, and then we have our effort that we put into it, it's kind of like a chicken or an egg kind of a thing, right? Like are we recognized because we're skillful, or are we skillful because we're, working hard to be recognized? Like how does the motivation come before the recognition? Do you serve before the king because you're skilled, or are you skillful because you work as though you're serving the king?
Yeah, one of the things I think about a lot, it's like a theme that I feel like I see everywhere I look, but I don't necessarily see it played out in a lot of books or movies, but I think about it a lot, is this idea of like doing what's right, just what's before you, and not worrying about the recognition or the fame or the wealth or the power that you could possibly accrue from that. Whereas if you go into it, it's like when people are thinking about going to college or something, starting a career. It's like, well, you need to, like, a lot of people think, well, what makes the most money? Like computer science or like medical school or something, law school. They might approach it from that point of view, like what gets me the most money when I turn this into a career. And I think the healthier way to approach it is the other way, which is what do I feel called towards? What am I good at? What do I enjoy?
Yeah.
And then you just work at those things and do them well. And what happens. If you may not be the most famous or the richest or whatever, but you don't put the cart before the horse, because you'll end up selling everything that you actually value to try to get more power or more wealth or whatever. It always becomes, well, if I got that, if I had that wealth. It's like in Jesus Christ Superstar, when the Pharisees are talking to Judas. Or
one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, and they're like, think of the things you could do with that money. Choose any charity, give to the poor. It's like that happens. I think that's a huge temptation, is to think like, well, I'm not chasing the wealth. I'm not chasing the power. I really want to use it to do a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, if that were true, you'd be doing good stuff now.
That's true.
So do good things now, whatever's before you. You can't go out and save the world probably ever, but certainly not like today. So just like, go and help your neighbor, go and take care of your kids, do your job that's before you, and just do those things well and do the right thing now.
Yeah.
And then build on that. Otherwise, you're chasing this thing and you're going to sell parts of yourself to try to get it.
Yeah. You're pulling my mind somewhere I hadn't prepped, but I think about that too, and I think I've thought in my life, like, don't ever try to do something to run away from who you are right now. Like, you want to go into ministry because that'd make me a better person, right? If I went into ministry, I'd have to be better because ministers have to be nice guys or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
Or I'm going to go into the mission field because that'll get me out of this culture I'm in now, and I'll be in a different culture.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't run away from who you are. You need to come to terms with who you are before you start going off somewhere, to make a big difference in the world. Like, you have to know who you are. It's like the Kung Fu Panda. I mean, we still need to do the gospel according to Kung Fu Panda someday.
Yeah.
But that, just be yourself, and then, all of a sudden you'll be great. But you just have to figure out what you were made to do.
Yeah.
So, but this question here that we're talking about, like serving before the king and wanting to be famous, like, and the person you're talking about, the person who is unassuming and just does what's before him, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about King David.
Mm-hmm.
But right now the question we're talking about is, why do you want to be famous? Why do you do the things you do? And this pursuit of fame. And so a really bad question to ask yourself when you're trying to decide, what you're going to do with your life is, how can I become famous?
Yeah.
That's a terrible question.
Because all these things would be tools. Like, they should be seen as a means to an end. Money, wealth, fame, or power and fame. Like, those are things you could do something with. But if you make them the end goal, then like, what are you doing? If you bring that down to, normally they say if you take something and take it to the extreme, the principle becomes more clear. I think in this case, if you shrink it down and you make it about like just a really menial tool, and you're just like, man, all I need in life is a chainsaw, and then everything will be fine. It's like, no, you need to like build a house or something, and the chainsaw might help you do that. So it's like,
yeah, well, it's like, why is this such a bad question to ask? Like, how can I become famous? Because, one of the things this Proverbs saying is, excel in your gifts and fame will find you.
Yeah.
Right? You're the only person who can do the things that you do. And if you do them well, everybody's going to notice. And so Jesus had something to say about this idea of personal ambition, about wanting to be famous, right? Really good advice for you in a lot of different situations in Luke 14:7-11.
When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted.
So I think, that speaks directly to this idea of check your personal ambition, right? Just focus on, like you said, what the task before you is, and how you should perform it.
I think we can see this in our popular culture. We have such a celebrity-driven culture right now in America with Hollywood and everything. But some people are famous for a reason, like they're really talented at acting or a particular sport or something. And then you seem to have a class of celebrities that are just famous because they're famous. Like we don't really know why. There's not a clear reason. Like, why do people keep up with the Kardashians? Like what? They're not. Don't seem to be
the Klingermans.
Yeah, they don't seem to particularly be doing anything. So it's you have to wonder, like, did they have that question driving their life? How do I become famous? And that's all they actually know how to do is like make certain connections, get on certain shows or something, just to put themselves in the spotlight. And it's a really meaningless task.
Well, also too, if you look at the story Jesus presented in his parable, he says if you're invited to a wedding feast, like don't go and take the highest place at the table.
Yeah,
it's a wedding. Right. Who are supposed to be honored at the wedding, right?
It's like, not about you. Yeah.
Oh, why are you sitting at the bridal table? Well, seemed like the best table.
That's where all the cameras were. So.
It's like, it's not even about you, right? You're supposed to be there to honor somebody else, and you're seeking the highest honor for yourself. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Jesus on seeking fame. He's kind of against it.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah. So now we'll get back to the example that we were going to use that Caleb.
When Jesus got too famous, he was like, "Man, I'd rather just die than put up with this." Just
yeah, fame isn't always what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
When he became famous, it was more like a meteorite,
Yeah.
So, but of course, his had as a resurrection in it. So.
Yeah.
All right, so
and now he's more famous than John Lennon.
He definitely is now. All right, so here is an example of someone who never sought fame and received it anyway. And this is from 1 Samuel 16. We'll start by reading verses 1 through 13. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." But Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, 'I have come to sacrifice to the Lord.' Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate." Samuel did what the Lord said. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled when they met him. They asked, "Do you come in peace?" Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me." And then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Jesse then had Shammah pass by, but Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There is still the youngest," Jesse answered. "He is tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." So he sent for him and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah.
It's interesting. Like Samuel has this whole ceremony. Like they're going to sacrifice. He's consecrating everybody. He invites a bunch of people, including Jesse's household. And Jesse seems to have deliberately excluded David.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's out doing menial work, right, for his dad, while his dad and his brothers go out and have a good time at the big party.
Yeah, and of course they're going to sit down and eat a portion of the sacrifice, because that's what Samuel's saying. We're not going to sit down until he arrives.
Yeah. It's a lot like Jesus' parable, right? Because, there's going to be this big dinner.
Yeah.
And so Samuel's like, I'm going to get, all my best boys and me. we're going to this party, and David, you stay out here and take care of the sheep.
Mm.
And so it's kind of like God was looking for the one that if you had something to go do, you would give him the responsibility while you were gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he sees that as the guy he would want.
Yeah.
And David is like, that's okay. I'll miss the party. You guys go.
So David, of course, we know he's out keeping the sheep, and we know from other passages he's also probably composing psalms with his harp and
playing music
and fighting off bears and lions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like Jesus said, if you sit in the lowest seat, you'll be brought up. And in David's case, it was like, well, just do what you're asked. Mm-hmm. Do what's asked of you, and you'll be recognized for it, right? Do the work that's at hand, like you mentioned earlier, and you'll be recognized for it. Do what you enjoy doing, like his music, and you'll be recognized for that, right? And so that kind of leads right into what happens next for David in 1 Samuel 16, 14 through 23.
Now the Spirit of the Lord had departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. Saul's attendants said to him, "See, an evil spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord command his servants here to search for someone who can play the lyre. He will play when an evil spirit from God comes on you, and you will feel better." So Saul said to his attendants, "Find someone who plays well and bring him to me." One of the servants answered, "I have seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem who knows how to play the lyre. He is a brave man and a warrior. He speaks well and is a fine-looking man, and the Lord is with him." Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Send me your son David, who is with the sheep." So Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread, a skin of wine, and a young goat, and sent them with his son David to Saul. David came to Saul and entered his service. Saul liked him very much, and David became one of his armor bearers. Then Saul sent word to Jesse, saying, "Allow David to remain in my service, for I am pleased with him." Whenever the Spirit from God came on Saul, David would take up his lyre and play. Then relief would come to Saul. He would feel better, and the evil spirit would leave him.
So because David was a skilled player of the lyre, right, he was serving before the king. So it's just exactly what the Proverbs said.
Yeah, and he even becomes one of his squires, essentially.
Yeah.
A trusted servant, a trusted role. You don't just trust anybody to to bear the armor of the king. No. If he's not reliable. You might need that in a pinch.
Well, David never pursued the fame or high position, right? Because even after he was anointed by Samuel, he went right back to tending sheep.
Yeah, and now he's serving the guy he knows that he's gonna supplant.
Yeah, he'll be king eventually in Saul's place. So the moral, I guess, if you can draw one out of this, is never pursue fame, and it will come to you if it's God's will.
Yeah. So does that mean we have no ambition? We don't have to, try?
You asking me personally? Yeah. No, I mean, right. That's the question you have now, right? It's like, so what does that mean? Is it like, well, might as well not try. God will take care of everything. I think it's the reverse of that, right? It's like you should have a heightened ambition if you know that God is in control of your destiny.
Yeah.
Like David, he was out doing the best he could and writing Psalms, like you said. He's doing all these amazing things that he ended up being famous for. And he even writes a psalm about being a good shepherd, which he was. And he was able to describe God as a good shepherd as a result of that. And so he's able to accomplish all these things for God because he had that heightened ambition just to do the simple things he was asked to do very well.
Yeah, so that feeds in well to what Paul talks about in Colossians 3, right? In Colossians 3, verses 22 through 24, he says, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, and do it not only when their eye is on you and to curry their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving."
So I don't know why it should matter who we're serving. Right? That's what this passage is saying. It talks about slavery, which is tough for us in our modern cultures to think about.
Yeah, but then, okay, if this even applies to a slave, well, certainly it applies to me at my job, Like we might be tempted to complain about my job or say, well, it's different because it's not fair. It's like, oh, really? Well, in the most unfair position imaginable, it still applies.
Well, yeah, because you say, well, I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to talk about the Bible on YouTube like Timothy and Caleb are. So why should I do anything like that?
Yeah, the check is still outstanding, but eventually we assume it's going to come through.
It seems like, why should I do something that I'm not going to get the recognition I want for doing? Yeah. And so if you consider being a slave, like that's the epitome of that. Everything you do accrues to the benefit of a different person other than yourself.
Yeah.
None of it accrues to you, or so it would appear. But what this passage is saying in Colossians is that it all accrues to you. Because if you notice that at the end there, it says, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. And so it's the same thing we just got done talking about with David. You should have a heightened ambition to do the most menial tasks for other people, because it's not them that reward you, it's God. And if God's in control of your destiny, that sounds like a pretty good future you've got.
Yeah, and we can probably all identify with that bit about not just when they're watching or to curry their favor. Like, it's like, sometimes you have like that radar around to know when the boss is coming back so you can look like you're working really hard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's tempting to say, well, why should I knock myself out for this guy? Because he's just going to, take the credit for it, or whatever work I'm doing for him is going to become his property. There's nothing for me, but why increase the fame and the power of some other guy, with your efforts? But it's because you're not working for any man. No matter who you're working for, you're always working for the king, like the Proverbs says, but you're working for God, the king. So the King of Kings. So that leads us into another saying of Christ, which we may not always think of in this regard, but in Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46, it says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They will also answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or needing clothes, or sick, or in prison, and did not help you? He will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life.
The passage wraps up so much of what we were just talking about. We have the pastoral imagery, because there's like the sheep and the goats, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We have the king, right, who's the one addressing them.
Yeah.
And it goes back to like what I was saying earlier, like just do the thing that's good right now. Like just, like mow your neighbor's lawn or whatever, like some menial task that nobody will ever notice, possibly. And you're doing that for the Lord. Going back to that, what what Paul was saying in Colossians about serving earthly masters. Don't just do it when somebody's watching to curry favor, right?
Yeah.
Like the definition of integrity that I was taught, or of character, is how you act when nobody's watching, or when you think nobody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
That's your true character. Because if you ever thought that there would be no consequences for your actions, what would you really do? Like in Groundhog Day, it's like, what would you do if you knew there was no tomorrow? There'd be no consequences. They're like, let's get drunk and steal a car.
Well, and Paul rarely quotes Jesus, but it seems pretty clear in that Colossians passage that he was thinking about this, because Jesus even says that the king will say to them, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing that Paul said. You do these things as though you're serving God, because you're going to get this eternal inheritance.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I was thinking about Groundhog Day now. I'm like, oh yeah, and don't drive on the railroad tracks.
Yeah, Paul never said that.
That's one I happen to agree with. Yeah, but I think it's just so crucial. Like we see it with David, right? When nobody's watching, he's just being faithful out with the sheep. We see it with Christ, or with Paul, or even with servants and slaves. Think about Philemon. We were talking a little bit about Philemon before this too, and like the whole book of Philemon is just a letter on from Paul on behalf of a slave who ran away, stole from his master and ran away, and then Paul converted him and sends him back. It's like, well, you two just need to make up and just
figure it out.
Yeah, you accept each other now as brothers in Christ, and yeah, you do what's right before you right now. Like, I think we tend to get caught up in thinking, especially when you're young and people are pressuring you, like you got to go to college, figure out your career, got to figure out your whole life right now when you're 16.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what? And I've heard somebody compare it before to this idea of like, what is God's will for my life? And they've compared it to, the idea you sometimes get from people like talking to you like that is that you're blindfolded on a tightrope in a dark room, and you're trying to like find your way through, balance your way through. I don't know what God's will is. He's just telling you right here, look, it's not that hard. I mean, sure, there might be these big things I have planned for you. You don't have to worry about that. Just be kind to the people around you. Be faithful with what I've given you now, even if it's a cardboard box in an alley. Like, you just start with what you have, with what you can control.
Yeah.
And we see that also in parables of like the servants that are given the talents. Who's faithful with little will be trusted with much, and whoever's faithful, more is going to be given to him.
Well, you can see how it would work out for any situation for somebody like this. Like, suppose you're a teenage kid in your parents' house and your parents drive you crazy. Mm-hmm. But what if you just said, well, all right, I'm in their house, I might as well be nice to them,
Yeah.
And everything they asked you to do, you did it real quick, and then you just got back to your stuff.
That's what me and my brothers always did.
Oh, yeah. You guys were a dream. And then, so like you could say the same thing for a marriage. You could be in a marriage. It's like, well, this marriage isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy.
They never listen to me. They always nag at me.
Yeah. But what if you said, well, how does she feel about it? She's probably like, this marriage isn't what I hoped it would be. So like maybe you should be the one who says, okay, I'm gonna do my share of this marriage, and then all of a sudden, hey, she's way more responsive to me. Wow, how did that happen? And so it's the same thing. All kinds of situations. A job, a terrible job, you don't like it. What if you just went in there and busted your butt every day, and then all of a sudden people are like a lot nicer to you?
Yeah.
So it just makes sense, like don't do it for the fame of, for the riches and all the other things, but do it because you want to do the best you possibly can. And getting back to our proverb, you will serve before kings, right? If you are the best at what you do.
Well, and in this parable here, Jesus says, whatever you did or didn't do to the least of these, or, with the smallest thing, you were doing that for me. Yeah. Like it begins at that ground level. So you're already working for the king.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I never even thought of this story when we were prepping, but my parents had a friend who actually he married my mom's best friend from high school. I won't mention any names, but he went into the military, and while he was there, he became an expert at demolition work, bomb defusing, and all that. And so he got out, and he was telling my dad, I don't know what to do with my life. I've been defusing bombs, and I can't really do that anymore. I'm not in the military. And my dad was like, well, sure you can. Like every big city has bomb disposal
on the police force. Yeah.
And so he I didn't think about that. Yes, I could still keep doing it. So he found a job with a police squad, as a like on a SWAT team or whatever that diffuses bombs and whatever. And so then he moved up from there. He ended up working in the Nixon White House on the president's personal security team. And I even have a pen from the Nixon White House when we took a tour with him, and I have a pen with Richard Nixon's signature on it, which used to be something
of all the presidents you could pick.
Yeah, don't seek fame.
Well, that's another reason why you shouldn't do it to curry favor with earthly masters or great men on earth, is because most of them, especially the more powerful you get, there's just a lot of corruption. It might not actually be worth selling your soul to get into that circle,
But
so it's a good thing for him. He just got there on hard work.
Yeah. Well, it's just weird. Like you don't think of bomb disposal as being what this is talking about.
Yeah.
And then so you're really good at disposing of bombs. Okay, how are you going to serve before kings? How about serve before the president of the United States?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of an example. And no matter what you're working at, you do the best you can. You do all those years of service in the military, and then when you get out, you end up serving the president of the United States because you're so good at it. So
yeah. All right.
Okay, so then there's a flip side to this because, it's talking about using your skills well and you'll serve before kings. One thing we just want to throw out, there's plenty of passages. We just picked one because we didn't want to discourage everybody, but because there's several that talk about the same thing. But
we could have done the whole raven thing like we did.
Yeah. Well, we just want you to understand that your skills that you work on, they could be good, they could be bad. So Jeremiah 4:22 says,
my people are fools. They do not know me. They are senseless children. They have no understanding. They are skilled in doing evil. They do not know how to do good. So, that's what you want to hear your father say about you.
I won't embarrass you like that in front of everybody. But so it's just like Jesus' parable with the sheep and the goats. One half of the group there got pretty well sent away empty.
Yeah.
And here you got people who they honed their skills of doing evil, and so
this reminds me of a Chesterton quote. It almost seems like it was made to lead right into it. He says that according to religion, mankind fell once, and in falling gained the knowledge of good and evil, and now we've fallen a second time, and only the knowledge of evil remains to us. Yeah. And that's like what this is talking about. You can, we have fallen, but we're still held up by God's mercy, right? Mm-hmm. And He still has given us His word. He's given us His people, His church, His Israel, and you can have a relationship with those things and have a relationship with Him, and still be able to cling to the good, or you can just throw it all away and then say, "Yeah, I'm just gonna, look out for numero uno." And do what I want to do.
Jeremiah's very first thing he says there is they're fools because they don't know God.
Yeah.
And so that's going to lead you down the wrong road. If you don't know God, you're going to use the skills you have for evil intent. Yeah. And if you do know God, you're going to use those skills for good.
If only he'd used his powers for niceness instead of evil. Get smart.
So I guess the overall point that we've been trying to get to is always employ yourself to the work at hand to God's glory, right?
Yeah, and you can do this right now with the smallest thing,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will listen to podcasts like this as they're doing chores. So half the people listening are probably washing dishes or mowing the lawn or something,
Yeah.
You can already start just doing that faithfully and well, not rushing through it, even if you live alone, right? So you're not even like doing it for a spouse or kids or something. Just do that faithfully and well as if you're doing it for God, and then move on to the next thing. And, you might not ever serve at the White House, but ultimately we're serving an even higher power than that. And like Paul points out there, we know that's our inheritance.
Yeah, absolutely. So our wise words takeaway is?
always work as though you are working for the King of Kings, because you are.
That's right. And so the sayings of the wise, as we've said every week, I haven't said it yet this week, but we're about to, is that God wants us to think about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We've seen that every single time. There's always like, have a thoughtfulness about what you're doing. And in this case, it's like have a thoughtfulness about how you approach your work, mm-hmm. right? And so we want to be working for God, right? And so no matter who you're working for, right, it may not be who it seems like at first. Like we looked at the Colossians passage, and you were working for a slave master, but you're really working for God. Mm-hmm. And so that's something you can apply in every case, whether it's, being obedient to your parents, or faithful to a spouse, or working at a job, the examples we used earlier. All of those things are things you do in the service of God as well. So when we really think about it, which is what the sayings of the wise call us to do, it's always working for God. Mm-hmm. So one way you can get better at doing this, Caleb?
Join a community of people. I mean, I mentioned that already, getting a relationship with God's people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So go to church.
Yeah, we always want to call people to go to church. Find a group of people that you believe are following God's will in your community. They have a good reputation that you've admired. Somebody you admire who goes to a particular church, go to church with them. Start hanging around with people who are trying to make it their goal to serve God. Mm-hmm. And then that will make you better at serving God and serving other people. And so I think that will propel you to a better future, which is what everybody wants for themselves. So he's Caleb and I'm Timothy, and thank you for listening to Bible Discussions on Biblocus, where the Bible intersects with your life. Please consider subscribing to our channel to help support our efforts. All scripture quotations, unless otherwise indicated, are taken from the Holy Bible, New International Version, NIV, copyright by Biblica, Inc., used by permission of Zondervan, all rights reserved. This program is copyright 2025 by Timothy Klingerman. God bless all of you.